In this forecast, significant severe weather will be coming to the northern plains, Midwest, Ohio Valley, and Northeast this week. And the tornado threat will increase in the northeastern United States tomorrow. And very large hail is coming to the northern plains. All of that and more is coming right up. Everybody, welcome back to a max velocity weather forecast, and today what we're going over is that severe weather potential across a large portion of the United States over the next several days. I'm going to give you the latest timing and breakdown over the next 3 days in terms of that severe weather potential. Let's hop right into it. So as of right now, there is a slight risk of severe weather in two different locations today. One is for later this morning, really ongoing as of right now across areas like Missouri and as well as Illinois. Main threat, damaging winds, isolated tornado threat. There's also another slight risk back out closer to southeast Ohio, as well as West Virginia and southwestern Pennsylvania. Main threat out that direction will be damaging winds and maybe some isolated large hail. Here's a look at that tornado potential for today. It is a pretty low-end threat. I can't rule out a brief or weak tornado even maybe outside of this location, potentially even over this direction, but overall, very low-end tornado threat. I am more concerned about any damaging wind component, again, up to 70 miles per hour, maybe a possibility with a few storms. Here's a look at the timing today and this afternoon. You can start to see around lunchtime today, we'll have that area of a line of storms from St. Louis back up closer to the eastern portions of Illinois. By about 1 to 2 o'clock, that line starts to move down to the east-southeast. Eventually, by about 3 to 4 o'clock, we'll start to see a bit of a line of storm still ongoing close to areas like Bloomington, as well as going through southern portions of Illinois. And you kind of see this little area here. That's actually a lot of rain, but not just that. That's where our low pressure system is actually be centered up. And that will eventually go into the northeast tomorrow. And again, more on that in just a moment. That'll bring another potential for severe weather. Eventually, by 10 to 11 o'clock, most of that storm activity does move off to the east. Should be clearing out in Illinois no later than about 5, 6 o'clock tonight. Here's a look at the timing about 9, 10 o'clock going into later this evening across areas like Tennessee and Kentucky. Again, main threat will be damaging winds with any of these storms. Eventually, by 1 to 2 in the morning, storms moving off to the north and east. Again, main threat, damaging winds, maybe some isolated large hail. We'll also have another potential for severe weather heading into tomorrow. This is a big area to watch going into not just tomorrow, but as well as Tuesday. There's a slight risk of severe weather for North Dakota, northwestern Minnesota, and extreme northeastern portions of Montana. Marginal risk does extend almost into Minneapolis, as well as into almost all of North Dakota. Main threat's going to be damaging winds. Extremely large hail is also going to be a possibility, as well as maybe an isolated brief or weak tornado. Very low threat again. Here's a look at the overall hail threat for tomorrow. We do have a hatched region that does represent that potential for hail over the size of hen eggs and a possible isolated location or two. That would include, again, North Dakota and to extreme western portions of Minnesota. That would kind of include that Grand Forks region. Here's a look at the timing for tomorrow evening. We'll probably see some storms fire up probably right around somewhere between about 6 to 10 o'clock. Eventually, by about 10 o'clock, we'll start to see some storm activity close to areas like Devil's Lakes. That area, again, the main threat will be large hail, but again, damaging winds cannot be ruled out. Eventually, by midnight, storms going through areas like Devil's Lakes, and as well as going towards areas like Grand Forks, going to the overnight hours. Again, those main potential threats will be damaging winds and large hail. Here's a look at the ongoing threat as well for tomorrow up in the northeast. This will be an area to watch actually pretty closely. There is only a marginal risk. This may get upgraded due to that potential for maybe a few tornadoes. It's not out of the question at this point, but it does include areas into New Hampshire as well as Massachusetts, Rhode Island, and even into Connecticut. As far south as areas like Virginia as of right now. Main threats will be potentially some isolated damaging winds, but really the tornado threat is more concerning as of right now because the low-level jet, by the way, will really be increasing. You can start to see as this approaches into areas in the northeast. We can see your little low pressure system back out here to the west. You can see this low-level jet really strong back over into areas like New York as well as even in Pennsylvania. Winds between 45 to 50 knots. That is a decent low-level jet for tomorrow, and it does increase to as high as 50 knots in some areas, even into Massachusetts and New England. So this will definitely be a system to watch as we see some storms enter into those regions. Here's a look at your timing for areas down close to Virginia and Maryland. This is by about 3 or 4 o'clock. We'll see some storms develop. Main threat with these, maybe some downburst winds up to about 65 miles per hour. Cannot rule out, again, a brief tornado, but overall, main threat in Maryland, as well as even into Virginia, as well as even Pennsylvania, main threat will likely be some isolated damaging winds. Those storms will eventually move off to the east. We'll see some storms going through areas like areas over near Delaware, maybe even New Jersey, closer to about 9 to 10 o'clock tomorrow evening. Here's a look at the timing over in New England. Again, the tornado threat will be existent. The storm motion, again, going to be mainly to the northeast. Eventually, by 2 to 3 o'clock in the afternoon, we'll see some storms entering into areas in western New England. That would include Massachusetts and Connecticut. Eventually, by 4 to 5 o'clock, storms are moving through those areas. And any of these storms, you can kind of see the shape on them, but any of these storms that do develop some rotation, which a lot of these will be rotating, will have that potential for maybe an isolated tornado or two. By 6 to 7 o'clock, storms moving through areas like Lowell and eventually through Albany, another area of storms developing back out to the west. Those would primarily be comprised of maybe some isolated damaging winds, not whole lot of a tornado threat behind that. Eventually going into the overnight hours, everything should clear out. Now, obviously, for most of you guys that know, I think almost everybody knows, there is a slight risk for severe weather now in Wisconsin, eastern Minnesota, as well as western portions of Michigan. Marginal risk does extend into northern Illinois, northern Indiana as well, and as well as almost all of Michigan. The main threats will be damaging wind gusts, possibly some significant ones as well, maybe some isolated large hail, and maybe an isolated tornado. Again, more details and timing on this coming in our upcoming forecast. A quick look at the tropics as of right now. Estelle has actually developed into now a tropical storm, and it's eventually going to become a hurricane. As of right now, it is just to the southwest of Mexico. This system is really going to strengthen quickly. We're talking potential for this to become a major hurricane by as early as maybe Tuesday. Here's a look at the ongoing system. A lot of thunderstorm activity. Those whites representing some very high cloud tops, indicating some very strong and possibly some severe thunderstorms out there in the ocean as of right now. Luckily, this will not impact land, it looks like, but there might be an increased amount of waves, and as well as if there's any cruise ships in the area, definitely be monitoring this very closely. But there will be a major this will likely become a major hurricane as early as possibly Monday or Tuesday. It looks to be pretty brief. It might become a category 3 for like a little brief amount of time, but overall it will start to weaken the further north and west it goes, just due to the fact more shear will start to come into play. That should be able to help it weaken a little bit, as well as cooler water temperatures in those locations. All right, make sure to stay updated again with Max Velocity here on our YouTube page. Make sure to subscribe down below and like the video. This forecast is brought to you by Platinum Contracting and All Dents Repair.